I miss church. That's all I can say. I miss going to church and seeing everybody. Hi, I'm Enna Wallace. I had polio since I was a baby.
So it was, we have 5 people living in our house, and 4 of us have disabilities of some kind.
I'm Ryan Frisella. In the way I live with cerebral palsy, as born with it, and just this last, actually almost 2 years ago now, in August, I started a job at Access to Independence, and I help youth with disabilities. I'm the youth service coordinator, and it's was so much fun, and it still is.
So I'm Jeannine Eddy, and what comes to mind for me is how isolation and with the social distancing that has happened because of the pandemic, how much it has increased mental health challenges. People that either had mental health challenges or living with that disability, that kind of the unseen disability, how much it's increased that that problem or exacerbated, existing ones or created them. And it is, and how much more difficult it has been for people that have either been connected to treatments, therapies, seeing doctors, how much more difficult it's been for them to be able to stay connected with the treatments that can help them.
And Heather, she's 48, she goes to a day program, and that's closed because of the academic, or because of the virus. And she doesn't really understand why she can't go, doesn't understand why she can't go out and eat. And it's been tough on her, not getting depressed, and that makes it tough on us too. And myself, I had polio when I was 65 years ago, and I have lung disease now, and it made it more important for me, especially with the lung disease and my age, that if I caught the virus, I probably wouldn't last very long, just simply because of lung problems. And it's one thing that bothered me the whole time of the virus, the last year, is how many disabled people and people disabled because of age-related problems have died. The main percentage of people passed away is elderly and disabled, and it's that's one thing that bothered me throughout the most, besides our personal issues.
The challenge, I'm losing a little bit of my, I mean, not losing, but I'm not practicing a lot of my mobility, because I used to go to the gym a lot to exercise, and I'm exercising some, but I usually go on the treadmill at the gym, and I'm not like doing that right now.
Another thing that I'll kind of a personal story for me is when this pandemic started, my loved one who lives with a mental disability was living in a group home. And at the beginning of the pandemic, there was all this awareness about how much more at risk people were living in group homes, board and cares, etc. And so it became aware to us, or evident to us, that we needed to think about bringing our loved one home under our roof so that we could be sure that he was social distancing and away from the exposure of more people, because when you have a lot of people under one roof, you've got more exposure from people that are coming and going, things that you really can't control. So we made the decision to bring him home, and that has worked out. However, I'll also note that had this pandemic started 3 years ago, that would not have been possible for us. He was not in a place, he was not stable enough for us to be able to bring him home. And so, I feel very blessed that that worked out for us. But I also think about all of the families that have loved ones who are not in a position to be able to have their families live at home with them, and they're not able to be connected with them or see them, or, that have died in group homes or nursing homes or care facilities, and just how much more difficult that has been for everyone. And so an additional challenge to all of this, connections with people are super important. And, and whether you make them, because you go visit them or whatever, it's super important to know that they're cared for and they're not forgotten. And this pandemic has just heightened that, the fact that they can't be near them, or, because of the fear of spreading or getting COVID.
I think with this pandemic, I find that the neighbors are a lot friendlier. They're actually, saying hi. People, you see a lot of people walking. There's actually in our path, my dog Buck and I walked this path, and one of the neighbors have this rock garden, and they actually encourage the neighbors to paint some rocks and add to the rock garden. And it started out with just maybe 3 rocks, painted rocks, and the theme is, what are you thankful for? And now this whole sidewalk in front of their house is filled with rocks from different people. So I think a lot of people are really being creative in, sharing hope and maybe sharing some, love, even with strangers. So maybe that's what the pandemic, you know, is giving us.
I think also, for me, it's, when you're challenged with things, I think, where there's a will, there's a way to kind of work through it if you really want to get something done. And, a year ago, I couldn't have told you what Zoom was, or, I learned Zoom. I'm not a real technical person. And so, I help with the National Alliance on Mental Illness. I teach family to family classes and support groups for families, because just because there's a pandemic doesn't mean that the need goes away. People are still struggling to find ways to help their loved ones, as far as mental illness, get treatment and all of that. And I was resistant to wanting to do something technical or through Zoom, but I did. I pushed through it, and it's just, people in classes have been so understanding of the challenges that, we have in trying to teach through Zoom. And that's just been great, so I didn't have to be perfect. We've learned as we've gone along, and super grateful. And yet they're able to get information that's helpful. And so there's a way, even still through this challenge, for things to be good for people or to help them. And that feeds me to be able to continue doing what was so helpful for me years ago when we had the challenge that we had. And I will never forget that. I will never forget, that feeling of being lost and not knowing where to turn or where to get help. And I will never forget that. And so that importance of being able to get that information out to people, however you can do it, is really, that's really powerful. And, you find a way, you will find a way.
I think the pandemic has slowed life down and given people time to think about how fragile life is, and that your life can change in a moment's notice and you never know when or what it'll be. And it's I think it's giving people time to think about it, and especially gives them time to get along with people they're with, or at least talk about stuff. It's kind of tough being stuck at home for a year or more, but it's manageable, and we found our ways of getting around and getting all of our stuff, and it's I'm a lot more hopeful about the future now than I was when it's all started, I think.
Yeah, I would say that I'm the same. I'm a lot more hopeful, I think, now, especially that a vaccine's here and all, and that. But I'd say something that gave me hope is I didn't really know what Zoom was until I had classes at Grossmont in sign language, and some of our classes were we had to do a lot of projects over Zoom. So I actually had a lot of practice with this platform before all this happened. Otherwise, I'd be in the dark, just like a lot of other people. And I'm really glad because other than getting inside the room, it's all really pretty easy. And I'd also say that the hope is that um, life has slowed down, but people are still getting things done and good things are still happening. Like my sister's getting married at the end of the year, and my friends got engaged, a couple of my friends, and there's good things to be hopeful for.
The way the church has and the pastors have gotten us onto electronic, services for Facebook, the YouTube services, the music we're listening to with the words and stuff that come up. They're really enjoyable. That it's I think that's going to make us a better church for lots of people, because when people have problems getting to church on Sunday, they can get an iPad or a phone and watch the service live, or anytime during the week, and get the news about what's going on. And I think that's fantastic, and I think it's going to be a major improvement when we get back to going to church on Sunday morning.
So with this conversation being started, you only see disability. I think most people's idea of disability is just the physical disability, but there's other disabilities out there, and there's different faces to it. It's old, young, different colors of skin. And I think for the most part, most people are very uncomfortable asking questions about disability.
It is such a commonplace, mental illness is such a commonplace. 1 in 5 people live with a mental illness. So that means 1 in 5 people have family members or loved ones that are affected by someone that have a mental illness. So it's affecting a lot of people, whether you live with it or you are, you're a family member or a loved one. And you would not be shamed if you had cancer. You would not be shamed if you had diabetes. You would not be shamed if you had a heart condition. It shouldn't be that way with someone that has mental illness or that's struggling with a substance use disorder. And so it needs to be, it's helpful to have people be comfortable, at least about asking and talking about it. This is what I'm going through. These are the feelings. It creates all kinds of different emotions. It brings up all kinds of different emotions when you have that challenge, whether you're living with that, with that mental illness. it may prevent you from wanting to seek or get help for it, because there can be help. Or if you're a family member, just, working through all the emotions that it brings up. It's trauma. It can be trauma for both family members and the loved ones that live with it.
Well, shame is one of the first things a person with disability has to get out of their mind before you can get back into society. I think you really can't function fully if you're ashamed of yourself for being disabled, which you really can't help. And having family members too can assist in overcoming.
I agree with Roy. Your disability should not define you.
I've done a lot of presentations about my disability in groups and schools and in classes, elementary classes. I have no problem at all answering genuine questions or talking about my disability. I think the majority of people really like hearing these stories, and I found that if I have a positive outlook about it, then they will too. And it's okay to ask and talk, and you got to bridge the gap somewhere. So
yeah, it's important to see the person and not the disability or the illness. See the person.
I know myself, I've lived a wonderful life that I figured if I hadn't had polio, I would have grew up being a farmer on a tobacco farm, but I've got to travel all over the country and met so many nice people and done so many fun things, and have a great family here in San Diego, which is my home now. So it's God has blessed me in innumerable ways all my life.
I think that's why it's so important that we make it really, really clear that we believe that that God's image resides in every person. And it's not in spite of the fact that someone may have some kind of a disability. That in fact, God's presence, God's image is reflected within the wholeness of a human experience. And so someone living with a disability, God is not punishing you. There's nothing that you did or didn't do, which I think was a very harmful way of thinking about it for a very long time. And that we recognize the giftedness that God provides for every person. And that it's not like God made some mistake and that you have to just suffer the consequences. And I think I'm appreciative that conversations have shifted that way,
Things are changing. I just for the better. And the little bits of progress that are made to feel comfortable talking about things and raise awareness and educate, and all of that changes it. It's like that trickle in the water. The little drop goes in and it just spreads out and it gets bigger. And that's what I feel. And that's I feel like that is, for me, it's purposeful. It helps me understand, maybe in a why, not that we were punished to have this in our life, but there was purpose to it. And to live through the challenge allows you to have that experience and that wisdom to help and share and change things for the better. And that's how I look at it. That is and that's a blessing. It's a blessing.
Disabled people make life better for the whole country. We get more people and more ideas out into circulation. It's better for everyone.
ableism is a real thing, and we're not done just because the ADA is signed. Things changing all the time, and we need to make sure that we keep on and keep those rights and make things better.
For me, I think what I would like to see is definitely education, sharing the knowledge, exposing, especially the kids. Because I think when you start exposing kids to different, different people, different opinions, you know, then they'll grow up more accepting and more, accepting that not everybody looks the same, not everybody walks the same, and even if you're walking with a limp, you're okay. If you have a mental disability, you're okay. That it's don't assume, so, and it's okay to ask questions. So I think as we start educating our youth, it'll be a better world, I guess.